What's up, everybody? Welcome to Gojo with Mike Golick Jr. That is me. With me, as always, back, better than ever, Brandon Newman.
Yes, better than ever. But I have an issue with you saying with me as always, as you've always said with me as always, as I haven't been with you as always. But I have been with you as always in spirit and in edit.
Well, yeah, Brandon, it's the footprints in the sand, right? You see those spots where it was just my mic recording on here? That was where Brandon edited me. See?
Okay. I see how we're still connected in that.
The audio footprints in the sand.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Are you good now, man? You're in a room full of stuff. You actually have made it down to Florida in theory. Boxes have been unpacked. The movers and your war against them is now over.
Yes. The war against the movers is over. They won. You know, sometimes
they always do
battles. You know, you gotta know when they have the power. When someone else has the power, you're at their behest. But anyways, yeah, we just spent 30 minutes finding my mic because I'm at my desk again for the first time in a very long time. But yeah, feeling a little bit settled heading into the new year, which is nice.
We do like that. And yeah, you're right. That's one of those instances. Moving and being in an airport are the two spots where you just sort of have to concede. Once they take your stuff, you're completely in their control, and you have to hope that the homework you did beforehand, it's honestly a lot like a game. You've got to hope the preparation that you did beforehand can sustain you, because once you get out there, it's its own living, breathing thing that's largely out of your control.
It is kind of like a game, because getting to the airport through TSA is like running your first 15 scripted plays on offense.
Yep.
Right? You're like, I know exactly how I'm going to get through here. I got TSA pre-check, like all the different things. But when you get to that gate and then they switch the gate, boy, you better get ready. It's time for audibles.
Exactly. That's where you learn what kind of coordinator you got. Like, all right, did we have enough install ready this week? Did you scout your opponent well enough to know, hey, this is the weather that might impact us. This is how crowded it might be today. This is what we're working with on the all things that you got to do beforehand to give yourself the best chance. And then you just got to go in, and it's about attitude and demeanor, unless you flew Southwest in the last week. My thoughts and my prayers are with everyone involved in that process. Like, it's beyond even a joke. It's legitimately sad and horrific for anyone who chose to fly that airline over the course of the last holiday weekend.
It is unfortunate, Miles. Almost called you Miles thinking about Southwest. Anyways, yes, it's unfortunate to think about Miles, but it's almost like a fall from grace, because Southwest was such an important airline to a lot of people. It's like Zoom and Skype. It's like when the pandemic started, you thought everyone was just going to be on Skype because that's what we're using. And out of nowhere, we zooming it up.
Just pops in like a thief in the night. We got a great show for you guys today. We're going to do, so these are the last of our Christmas pods is coming out today. We have been releasing Monday, Wednesday, Friday for the last couple of weeks around the holiday season, as Brandon is moving in a room where things are falling down around him right now for the audience watching on YouTube. And we always appreciate those of you who download, subscribe, rate, review, leave us a 5-star rating. And of course, check us out on the DraftKings YouTube channel as well. Holiday rating would be nice. That's all I'm saying. Like, maybe in the spirit of the holiday season, go on there and just leave us some emojis. You know, leave your New Year's resolution in there as well. Good. Brandon, are you a New Year's resolution guy? This will be our last podcast before the start of 2023.
I am. And like most of America, I famously ditch it halfway through January. But I think this one, I can actually stand by. Mike, you ready? In the new year, I will not come on this podcast without reading at least one article about what we're talking about.
That's big. I'm proud of you.
I'm not done.
Oh.
And 5 to 10 minutes of super speed listening to a podcast on a subject that we're talking about, Mike. I am going to get better. I'm going to have other people influencing these crazy takes. And that's something that I think I can acquiesce to. I think I can stand up to that resolution.
Can you listen to podcasts on like 2 times speed?
I can when it's about sports and it's informational.
Interesting. I've never been a person that's super comfortable with that. And I feel like it's one of my worst qualities and traits because everyone talks about how much more efficient that can be, but it just ends up making me feel anxious.
Yeah. Really? All podcasts? Or what about
Yeah.
books? You read your books. You don't listen to them.
Yeah. I'm a classic hand and eye reader.
Interesting. Do you
Yeah.
have a newspaper subscription?
I do online. I don't have a physical newspaper subscription. No, I'm not quite that old. That's boomer shit.
Yeah, that is boomer shit. Boomer shit that I do like pawn over. Like I wish I could. One time, one old man, just old black man, and he trusted because he's old and black and a man. So I was like, anything he said, I was like, okay. He's like, son, what you need to do, go home, get you a subscription to the Wall Street Journal, and you ain't got to read the whole thing, but you got to read that headline copy every day or every week. And I was like, oh.
See,
okay,
setting realistic goals for the new year. That's pretty realistic. You don't got to read because the whole thing is intimidating. It's like any other goal. You got to just find yourself a little bite-sized part of it and then just eat at your own pace. Just read the headlines.
Speaking of eating at your own pace, what's your New Year's resolution?
I probably need to pick a new one every year. In general, like I usually just write down and kind of like remind myself somewhere, whether it's like in a journal or near a nightstand. You remember this, our old strength and conditioning coach, Paul Longo, used to always say, take care of the people that take care of you. And I feel like that's just kind of a good thing to come back to at the start of the new year. Be a good teammate. Look out for your teammates. We are getting further and further away from our time as teammates and doing all that. And a lot of life happens. And unfortunately, we've, not to get too serious, we've had a lot of life happen in a very negative way to people that are very close to us. And you always look back and wonder if there's something more you could have done. And so I'm always a good reminder to start doing it a little bit sooner if you've got the opportunity.
Honestly, you're on to something that you've talked about before, but I'd never really put the seriousness to it, and I'm turning my corner. Community.
See?
Community.
Listen, baby. That's what we talk about, and that's what we preach around here. And like we said, we appreciate everyone who comes and is part of this community through the first year that we've been doing this. Now, it's technically under a year. We started in May, but it was in 2022, so we appreciate with you guys for rocking with us during that time period. And to close out 2022 for this podcast, got a fun one today that I'm really excited about. We are in the midst of bowl season right now. And as this podcast releases, Friday will be the most important bowl game to my heart. No, it's not Notre Dame playing South Carolina in the Gator Bowl, although excited to go down there and check that one out. No, it is the 2022 Duke's Mayo Bowl between North Carolina State and Maryland. And that is a game that I was a part of last year. That is a game that will probably end up being like, I don't believe that I was ever important enough to have a legacy, but if there was anything that was going to be in a legacy from 7 years at my time at ESPN, it would be the 2021 Duke's Mayo Bowl with me, Anish Shroff, and Taylor McGregor going on air at a game where the winning coach got dunked in mayonnaise and dunking Oreos, donuts, and all sorts of other shit in mayo and eating it on other people's TV. And so we decided to get me, Anish, and Taylor back together to do the oral history of the 2021 Duke's Mayo Bowl. Anish is going to be back on the call this year for the game. It's him, Brock Osweiler, and Andrea Carter, who are going to do an awesome job. And I'm really excited to watch. I've talked to them a little bit about what they've got planned, and it's very exciting. But we go back through the game heard around the world that ended with, Dionne Warwick, the R&B legend, saying that we needed to be put on paid leave. A writer in Australia saying we are part of the downfall of America. It was a lot, so we wanted to go unpack it.
It's a lot, but also some things could be true. Some things can be hyperbole and be true. I know everyone will miss you on the call this year, but Brock Osweiler, very, very tall. I don't know how that turns out audibly. I don't know how that works with the actual calling the game, but vantage points from the sky, almost like a drone shot.
Yeah, no, listen, he's got a great view of the field right now. He's a human all-22 copy at those altitudes. It's going to be a great listen. And so that's what we've got today with Anish and Taylor, pumped to round out our holiday podcast in that way. We will be back in 2023, Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, the way that you have been used to, same bad time, same bad place. And we'll have plenty of reaction to the college football playoff coming up this weekend, the semifinal games getting going, all that good stuff. Brandon, we did have a couple of news items, though, that we wanted to get to here before we gave way to the interview. We talked about it before. The least surprising thing in the world happened. The Christmas ratings came back for the NBA versus the NFL. Yeah. And it's, I think, a very interesting conversation between this and what we're seeing talked about in bowl season in college football. Because more is better is what the NFL is going to take away from this. So the NFL on Christmas had its first Christmas Day triple header, Packers, Dolphins, Broncos, Rams, and Bucks, Cardinals as the nightcap. They had 3 games versus the NBA's 5 games, which were 76ers, Knicks, Lakers, Mavs, Bucks, Celtics, Grizz, Warriors, and Suns, Nuggets. And especially that middle group there, right? Bucks, Celtics, arguably the 2 best teams in the Eastern Conference of the league. Grizzlies, Warriors, an awesome rivalry for the last couple of years. Young Grizzlies team that's sort of nipping at the Golden State heels. And a couple of NFL games that were largely lackluster. Packers, Dolphins was the only one that mustered up any actual oomph, while the other 2 really sucked. And it didn't matter. The average viewership, according to Pro Football Talk, the average viewership for the NFL was 21.88 million across the day. For the NBA, 4.318 million, which the NBA has long built Christmas Day up as its holiday. If the NFL has had control over Thanksgiving, Christmas Day NBA slate for especially ESPN has been the thing that they use to sort of spring the coverage of the NBA into the rest of the season. Everyone was sitting around at home. It was their chance to watch. And they simulcast these on ESPN and ABC. So it wasn't like you didn't have the network bump either. And so, Brandon, I don't know. I'm not that surprised by this. We said before, this is just what the reality. This is a country addicted to football. This is a country that each and every year, 75 of the top 100 broadcasts are NFL games. This shouldn't stun anyone. This shouldn't stun NBA fans. Like, this isn't a new addition to the conversation in any way other than I'm sure NFL executives, the owners, and the people that make these decisions are looking at this in a world where they are expanding to different countries to play games. They are flirting with other nights like Black Friday to add even more games and saying, why the hell would we stop right now? Why wouldn't we jam as much NFL as we could into every nook and cranny of the schedule?
Well, I would say one reason why they shouldn't is, if anyone's like me out there, there's a little bit of football fatigue around the holiday season, around now when we're just inundated with football. It's a lot. It's great. Sometimes it's not great. It's just the ball and the players and the helmets. So we're going to watch because something great could happen. And that's what it is for NBA for me, Mike, is whenever football is on TV, it always trumps basketball on TV. And I used to love diving into the NBA. I talk a lot about the NBA season starting on Christmas Day because that's what it is for me. But I didn't watch a lick of basketball during this holiday break. And I don't feel like I need to apologize for it because football is on. Usually football is not on it to this degree.
No, and I guess that's the whole point now is they looked around and realized, oh, people did like this. Because your point, even if you think that there's football fatigue anecdotally, it's not the case. Almost 22 million people tuning in across all these games. Like you said, when given the opportunity, people will gravitate towards that. I joked the other night on this podcast, Luka Doncic had the first 60-20-10 game in NBA history, and I was watching Wisconsin, Oklahoma State. I was watching the Guaranteed Rate Bowl.
I mean, it makes sense for you, obviously, guaranteed sicko, but okay. Obviously, the fatigue is there, Mike, but it's not fatigue enough not to put it on, if that makes sense. Because, like, football is the perfect thing to have on.
Well, because you said something can happen at all time, and that something is rampant violence, right? Like, but like that's the honest part. Like, we're a country addicted to violence, and at the core of this sport is the opportunity for violent excitement to happen at each and every time. That's why everyone the other night, the Pistons and the Orlando Magic, there was a scuffle over by the bench. Mo Wagner got knocked out in that scrum somewhere in the middle of that, and it was all over the place. It was, that violence and an outburst in an area where we don't normally see it. And I'm sure it'll be blast all over SportsCenter and all these places. There'll probably be suspensions for, I forget who it was, the player that like rabbit punched Mo Wagner in the back of the head, which is the lamest thing that you can possibly do in a football fight or any other fight otherwise there. I mean, my God. So that guy's wallet's about to get a lot lighter and probably miss some games with the resulting visual of this. But that's kind of the point, is people just have that sort of car wreck thing where they stand and rubberneck at this. And the NFL provides those violent collisions over and over again over the course of a 3.5 hour window.
Okay. So by the way, the player was Kellen Hayes.
Okay.
For the Detroit Pistons. But Mike, I feel like it used to be that. I feel like it used to be the violence that got us there. Now, because of how they're changing the game, obviously, if you was watching the Kansas-Arkansas game, the Liberty Bowl, then you'd see that, I forgot his first name, but Thomas speared someone. It was a targeting call. He got ejected from the game. But like, that is how the game is played, fast and violent. But I think people are now watching for touchdowns now, because fast and violent get you kicked out of the game if you're too fast and violent.
Well, yeah, exactly. But there's always, like, still at its core, that's what's there. Like, all of the rest of that is clever window dressing around the core of this, which is an incredibly violent collision-based sport. But you bringing up bowl season, I think, is the interesting tie-in to this, because bowl season is the perfect show of more is better, right? Everyone sits up and tries to do this. Danny Kanell, God love him, former colleague at ESPN, now working over at SiriusXM and CBS Sports, tweeted out the other day, 8 wins. Yes, 8 should be required to play in a bowl game, basically hinting back at that idea that the 6-win threshold means there's too many bowl games. Like, this is, kind of blaming the wrong person in this argument, right? Like,
right, yeah.
You need to be blaming television execs for saying we want 43 bowl games, not teams for, having a certain amount of wins. Like, the inventory is there, so they're going to fill it. And that goes back to because people are going to watch it. Because even if you feel like there's too many bowl games on, none of them mean anything, the AutoZone Liberty Bowl would like to wave its hand in your face and say, no, every once in a while, you're going to strike gold in the middle of this. And you're going to get Kansas coming back from down 38-13 in the third quarter to force 2 overtimes in one of the more exciting games that we've had so far. And you're going to feel justified all over again. And that is why we've seen nobody willing to yield on the idea that we need fewer bowl games. No, in fact, the idea that we needed more bowl games expanded into the college football playoff that's now moving to 12 games and was almost dictated by the bowl games that wouldn't happen sooner than later. Like, more has always been better in this model. And I think, Brandon, part of the reason that's somewhat justifiable is because you've got so many content options in general now. Like, for Danny and others, my refrain was, if you don't want to watch it, you don't have to. But the thing is, like you said, it's comfort food. If you know it's there, it's really easy to just throw on and feel pretty good about your decision. But we live in a world with almost infinite content options right now. That's why I stopped recommending shows to people. There's too much. Like, everyone goes about watching their thing, and if you bump into other people who happen to be watching the same stuff, great. But you scroll down any streaming platform, you scroll down whatever cable outlet you choose to subscribe to, and you're going to find more options than we have ever had in the history of this earth.
Yes. So here's the perfect example, because I am not a member of the Sicko Committee. I actually watched The Glass Onion on Netflix rather than watching Monday Night Football this week. So, like, I'm slowly starting to disconnect from bad football when I can, but I didn't even put that game on, Mike. We're emptying boxes in a new house and we just need something on, right? I like to actively watch my TV, so I didn't choose it. Michelle threw on the Liberty Bowl game and it was just amazing to watch, right? And that's your even 6-6 teams that the Danny Kanell doesn't think should be in a bowl game, and you can just watch something else, right? Because I believe Texas Tech and who played that? Texas Tech and Oklahoma. Who did Texas Tech play?
Texas Tech played Ole Miss.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, does matter. Big game. So as I'm saying, there's Texas Tech and Ole Miss that you can watch afterwards, or later on today, the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be watching a 8-win UCLA team versus an 8-win or a 9-win UCLA team versus an 8-win Pitt team. Like, there's windows for you to get those games, Dan Cannell, if you so please. And that shortens your bowl window down to probably the games that I'm interested in watching anyways. There's a lot of people that don't even turn it on until the semis start.
You know what? But I guess this thing is there's something for everyone right now. And clearly, like, adding shrinking is not going to create the meaning that you value anymore. Like, the meaning changed when the money changed. The reason that players aren't playing in this is because you're not paying them to play in these games. And because the really good ones can make money in a few months and they don't want to get hurt in the process. We had another one of those situations pop up this weekend where Grayson McCall, the quarterback of Coastal Carolina, who entered into the portal because his head coach, Jamie Chadwell, is now heading to Liberty, getting set to go in the portal, but played in the bowl game and then got hurt. And now that potentially affects what happens with him going forward. So all of those forces are the things that change and create meaning or value in these games as the people that want to argue against it see fit. And so I think, honestly, we need to change that take from this year because we're not getting fewer bowl games. That's not going to happen. And the bowl games are fine. You know, some of them are good, some of them are not good. The thing that we need to change is make sure that we get some of these games played on far better surfaces. You looked at Oregon and North Carolina playing on a field that was chewed up to shit. There were plenty of games that we have seen pop up playing on surfaces that are incredibly slick, that give players bad footing, where now all of a sudden you up the potential for injury. And thankfully, we haven't seen it realized a ton. But that part's embarrassing, and these players deserve better on that front. And if you're going to be partners that put on these bowl games and make all this money from the product, then you damn sure better make sure that the field's in better working order than what we've seen in some of these games. It's fucking embarrassing. And if it does end up getting someone hurt, I'm going to be furious. So that part is what we need to focus more of our energy on, is shaming these people into making sure the playing surfaces are worth a damn for the kids that are going to play these games.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen injuries happen. You can't 100% put it on the field, but that field wasn't great when Jalen Smith and Notre Dame was playing against Ohio State, when he messed up his knee pretty bad in the red zone. And Mike, I played at the Beef O'Brady's Bowl in St. Petersburg, Florida, on Tropicana Field, which is a baseball field. And anytime that you got to run through the dirt, I know the Las Vegas Raiders did this for a long time. I guess there was the Oakland Raiders before that. The baseball fields, the football fields, it's just turf even. It's just not – football fields are football fields. It's very hard to try to play. It's not hard to play football on fields. It's not football, but it isn't fun.
No, and so that needs to be the focus here now as we look at all these bowl games. Brandon, the other thing that popped up, Derek Carr benched by the Las Vegas Raiders this week. Now, not altogether surprising, but kind of indicative of where they're going, right? This has been a bad season for the Las Vegas Raiders. Derek Carr had signed a 3-year extension a while back for $121.5. Oh, it was this spring, but like every extension, you got to look at the fine print. And his dead cap hit after this year, if he were cut within 3 days of the Super Bowl, would only be about $5.5 million. It was a very easy out for a team that was in transition, bringing Josh McDaniels in and some new leadership in that front office. And this is kind of like what we've talked about with Denver firing Nathaniel Hackett because they have to keep Russell Wilson. They are more bought into that guy than they were Nathaniel Hackett, and they've got to do something because what they got result-wise this year wasn't good enough. So it goes for the Raiders, who just bought into Josh McDaniels as their new head coach after the fiasco that was last year, and things didn't go well. And while that's not really on Derek Carr, the defense, plenty of other parts of this team that failed to live up to the billing, including their head coach, they're more bought into the head coach, and they've got this financial out with Derek Carr, who's been there and not really been ever fully, I think, loved by this organization in a way a player of his caliber normally would be. And so making the decision to sit him down because you're likely going to try and move him in the offseason. Now, they said him coming back in 2023 is still on the table, according to Jeremy Fowler over at ESPN, or this is Paul Gutierrez over at ESPN. But they're sitting him down because they may move him or cut him this offseason. They don't want to worry about doing so with him injured and that complicating any part of the process. And it makes sense because this is a dollars and cents move.
Yeah, it's a dollars and cents move, but I just feel bad for DC. I think he's said openly that he'd rather die with the ship than to try to get traded and go try to chase a playoff team because he just really wants to be Raiders wherever city they're at. I feel bad for him, but this was always a reality because it seemed like he didn't have a firm grasp on how the franchise felt about him. Like even listening to Harry and Fitz the other day, the fact that Max Crosby is the face of your franchise after 9 years of you giving stability to the quarterback position into that offense says something about that franchise.
Oh, it does. Listen, and that's kind of always been the case here. Now, Derek Carr hasn't always been perfect, but he's always been an above average quarterback in the NFL, and some years even more than that. But when John Gruden was there, who was brought in to be the face of that franchise, you could very clearly see in Hard Knocks and these other things, there was tension there between a head coach that I think didn't always feel like he had the best material as a quarterback and Derek Carr, who's also just a different personality, right? Like Derek Carr is a quarterback who certainly wears his faith on his sleeve, quite literally, you know, a tattooed sleeve in the last couple of years, has been lauded for his leadership, even where we didn't always think he was a perfect fit in that spot. He doesn't always look and sound like the typical leader that you'd see in some NFL locker rooms, but that's also what makes this interesting, Brandon, because again, the move's not surprising. It was Jeremy Fowler said that Carr and the Raiders agreed, the two sides talked and thought this was the best move, and that he would step away from the team for the remainder of the regular season so that he's not a distraction. That's the part that's a little strange to me because of what a leader Derek Carr has been for this team. Like when they went through hell last season, he was a steadying force for that team. Everything that happened with the team on the field, the John Gruden email stuff, obviously what happened with players on that team off the field and some of the horrific things, Derek Carr stepped up in a way that really, I think, for people that may have been on the fence or at best ambivalent about Derek Carr, all of a sudden looked and said, man, this guy actually walks what he talks. He lives what he says as far as being a leader, and in his case, being a Christ-like leader in the way that he views that. And so with all of those leadership things in mind, I was a little stunned. Like I can get, like, people say it's not business, it's personal. This is deeply personal. And for Derek Carr, who I don't think, again, has ever really been fully loved by that organization in ways he thinks he probably deserved as a franchise quarterback, I can get feeling some type of way right now. I'm just surprised that a guy that talks about and has lived leading that team the way he has would be stepping away at this time and not being around and being there for his teammates, like saying he doesn't want to be a distraction. You just don't want to answer questions. Like, you don't want to have to answer questions in the media. Your teammates are still going to get asked questions. Devontae Adams, who just got there this offseason to reunite with his college teammate, is going to get asked questions about Derek Carr. So you're not saving your teammates any bit of distraction. Derek Carr is just not going to have to talk about it in front of a microphone at a Raiders facility.
That's unfair, Mike, and that's one of the things that makes me feel like it may be his last. The interception he threw, his last pass he threw as a Raider, that may be his last pass. Period, because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for him to. It's not you being a distraction. This isn't Cam Newton and the Patriots, unvaccinated Cam Newton backing up Mac Jones after a quarterback competition and the type of character that Cam Newton is. This is the face of your franchise being embarrassed and deciding to just hide his face, which I think I give him. I don't blame him in this instance, but I do feel like it's an odd move for the Raiders when it comes to who they care about in that locker room, why they care about him, how they're finishing out this season. Like Josh McDaniels isn't absolved from blame either for how this season is turned out.
Oh, no. He 100% deserves blame. There's a lot of questions about Josh McDaniels, and once again, him getting in the head coaching spot and things not really looking all that well. It's a reminder that the skills that make you a great coordinator are not the same skills that make you a great head coach, and sometimes there are just people that are more cut out for one than the other. No, this is just a crime of convenience here. We've got to do something to show our fan base that we're not just going to sit idly by and give them the same thing that didn't work. And Derek Carr's the most affordable option to go out and at least try and show, hey, we're doing something. We're giving effort. But again, so I think it's understandable from their standpoint. This was something that was circled before the season. They got an easy out. If shit goes wrong, they're going to cut off the limb that's already kind of dying. Derek Carr, even, like, I will extend him some grace. This is an uncomfortable situation, and there is a lot of ego tied up in all of this stuff. Yeah. But there's always going to be part of me that just says, hey, listen, as a professional, at some point, you got to just stand up and take your medicine, right? You're going to have to answer questions about this at some point. Better to get it done now, because again, I just don't think you're saving your teammates all that much. They're going to trot Jarrett Stidham out there, who's the backup they traded for from the New England Patriots. They're going to give him the shot now, and it's not Josh McDaniels talks about it's not about giving him a shot or giving him a real opportunity. It's about making sure Derek Carr doesn't get hurt before you do anything, making that transaction this upcoming offseason if you're going to do that. And so, again, I don't think you're saving your teammates all that much in the distraction department. Everyone knows the drill. Your season is 2 weeks more. This is just Derek Carr, it seems like, not wanting to have to go and address this situation right now, which just, again, we always talk about players after the game, highly emotional, having to go up in front of microphones, and how difficult that is to compose yourself. But it's also just kind of what comes with the territory. And so if he needed to take a minute, that's fine. If maybe they gave him a couple days off, I'm just surprised. And I'll be interested to see if this ends up being for the last 2 weeks, if he really can stay away from his team and these people who he might be with for the last time now. Like you talked about throwing his last pass. This might be his last time in the locker room with a lot of people that he's gone to bat with for a long time. And I'll be interested to see if he actually sticks to staying away for the entirety of the next couple of weeks of this season in that process and isn't with his team and doesn't eventually come and answer those questions. Because again, that's just more in line with the Derek Carr leadership that we've seen in the last couple of years. This is more about his standard than it is about necessarily a judgment for action.
Yes, I can't get the fact that Jarrett Stidham is the one taking over for him, because he might be Brian Hoyer light. Like, he may be that guy that's going to stick around the league and just be, a cushion for the last part of the season for a lot of people, Mike. But for Derek Carr, I feel like the Raiders are getting into a position that they don't want to be in, because that middle tier quarterback and the fight to the top of it, that I think Jared Goff has clawed his way to the top of the best of the middle. Like, what else is out there for you? And I'm not talking about the draft. Like, what else is out there for you to give stability to this program that clearly needs it? And it's like we said, it's not coming from the head coach. It's not coming from the front office. There was a quarterback carousel there for a very long time before Derek Carr started his 9-year career with the Raiders. It just seems like you're trying to get happier and happy, greener pastures, that type of stuff, because the Bears can tell you what it's like to draft mediocrity in Mitch Trubisky until Justin Fields comes along 2-3 years later.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to see a shuffling of replacement level quarterbacks this offseason, right? Daniel Jones is going to be a free agent. Jimmy G is going to be a free agent. Geno Smith, Geno Smith's going to be at the top of that heap. The Seahawks let him walk out there, but there's a lot of names of quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield and what he's done in Los Angeles, I'm sure is going to get starter looks again from people. And so there's going to be that. Derek Carr, by the way, is going to be a fascinating commodity heading into this offseason for teams that might be thinking they're a quarterback away, because you put that guy around a defense that can function and some weapons, and now all of a sudden you're probably in a scenario where you can go out and compete closer to now than you were.
I just thought the one place that he'll go and everybody will be happy, where his brother made it popular, Houston Texans.
Oh, God, if I'm Derek Carr, I want no part of that. Like, if they cut him and he's got a choice, no, absolutely not.
Go sit down in Texas and chill with all them kids. He can go relax. He can go have a little Phillips River life if he goes down to Texas.
Derek Carr is going to want the opportunity to win on a high level for once, and that Texans program is a long way away from that, even if they showed a bunch of fight this year. Long way.
I'm not saying anything because we don't really want to talk about the Texans.
Derek
Carr playing there.
No, we don't. So, yeah. With that being said, what we do want to talk about is this quick break that we are going to take. Happy New Year to everyone. Be safe around.
Picks.
Oh, shit. We do have picks. Jesus Christ. See, this is why you're here. All right, let's go through this because we've gone far too long and we need to get people to Mayo stories.
No.
All right, picks coming up. I am 47, 52, and 4 on the season right now overall. 6 thick picks, 3 college, 3 pro. heading into the weekend. NFL, Brandon, I'm going to go Panthers +3 versus the Buccaneers. This is mostly just me using this to will the Carolina Panthers into the postseason, into existence, because this Bucs offense is sad and hard to watch. I got San Francisco -10 versus these Las Vegas Raiders. Jared Stidham against that defense? Nah, not good. Not good.
Wow.
I think they are going to run them out of the gym. And then the Jets -1.5, the return of White Mike on the road against the Seahawks. Road favorites. That is the value rib damaged Mike White means to Las Vegas, the people in the desert, not the team in the desert. And so I'll rock with that one. Seattle's been a little bit of a downturn in the back half of the season, and that Jets defense scares the shit out of me. College football, in honor of the Duke's Mayo Bowl, NC State versus Maryland. I'll go NC State -1 in this game. Maryland's going to be down most of their best receiving options around to his younger brother, Taulia Tagovailoa. And that Mike Locksley-led squad. For NC State, that linebacking core, which Drake May, who's been one of the best linebackers in the ACC for a few years now, announced that he's going to declare for the NFL, but he's still going to play in this game. That linebacking core, when healthy, has been the best in the ACC, probably right there alongside the guys that Clemson has been able to prop out of there. And so it sounds like MJ Morris, their freshman quarterback who took over after the injury to Devin Leary, has been back at practice and maybe a go for this game. But either way, I still think that NC State's going to pull this one off. They last year felt like they got robbed of a 10th bowl win because their game got canceled because of a COVID outbreak. I think they were playing UCLA. And so chance to go to and cap off their season in the way they want to. I'll take them -1. College football playoff semis, we'll pick them. Georgia -6.5 against Ohio State. I think Ohio State, and I've talked about it with plenty of people, has the firepower and certainly has the talent to make this interesting. I just think Georgia is going to be pretty locked in coming off an SEC title game where they gave up way more yards than they were comfortable with. And Kirby's been able to get in those guys' ears for a couple of weeks now. And then, man, listen, total vibes play here. TCU +7.5 versus Michigan. Michigan is going to win this game. But at this point, TCU has made every game a bloody knife fight when given the opportunity, even after they got down in the Big 12 championship game. I think Michigan could probably win by 7. They're going to be down Blake Corum in this game. We know Donovan Edwards was able to shoulder that load against Ohio State. And certainly they were more than capable in the Big Ten championship. But I just want to see if Michigan can be explosive consistently. What we saw from them in the Ohio State game as far as their passing attack had not been there consistently all year long. And so I'll ride one more time with the magic of Hypno Toad, TCU +7.5 in that game.
Ooh, I love it. I'm just trying to fade you. So
no, 100% the right move. Again, 100% the right move. Evened out a little bit more lately. We've had positive wins in the last 3 weeks. 5-1, 4-2, 3-2-1 in the last 3 weeks. So we're moving in the right direction, but you never know.
Yeah, I know, but the points are messing me up because I want to just outright money line bet against you and say TCU wins and Ohio State wins. But come on now.
Oh yeah, no, that would be a bad decision here. Brandon, your stocking stuffers to finish off the remnants of the holiday season here. What do you got?
Listen, the Jags have not done me wrong. I like the way Trevor Lawrence is playing right now. Easy. Jags -4.5. Then you got the Lions. I like the way they're playing right now. Obviously, they're going against the Bears. It's a divisional game. It's important. I like the Lions -6 in that game. The Packers are alive, and they're playing decently well. I do believe in them. I believe in them as far as I believe in the 2-time MVP Aaron Rodgers at this point in time. So I'm taking the Packers over the Vikings, but the Packers +3. And then the battle of the LA teams, the battle for SoFi, LA Chargers versus the LA Rams. I really do think that the Rams have something to fight for just when it comes to ego and bragging rights, but the Chargers are trying to get right before the playoffs. So I'm going to take them. Chargers -6.5.
Go Chargers, go. All right, the battle for SoFi this weekend. Very exciting. Those are Brandon's stocking stuffers. Take all these picks for what you will, man. Try and ride out into the new year feeling good. Everyone, be safe. Celebrate responsibly on New Year's Eve if that's your thing. Thanks for rocking with us. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk to Anish Shroff, ESPN and Carolina Panthers play-by-play announcer, and Taylor McGregor, ESPN sideline reporter and one of the sideline voices of the Chicago Cubs, about the oral history of the 2021 Dukes Mayo Bowl. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Gojo with Mike Golick Jr. That is me. These are the holiday podcasts here, which means we get to do things a little differently than normal. As always, download, subscribe, rate, review, wherever you get your podcast, those 5-star ratings. And, of course, check us out on the DraftKings YouTube channel under the Gojo of Mike Golick Jr. tab. Got a fun one here today for the holiday season. Want to take everyone back in time to, I think, the moment that in a lot of ways will end up being either the 1A or the 1B in my career highlights, and got to do it with two of my favorite teammates of all time. Joining us here on the pod, Anish Shroff, ESPN play-by-play and the Carolina Panthers voice with us here as well, and Taylor McGregor, ESPN sideline reporter, as well as the host and field reporter for the Chicago Cubs. Guys, we got the band back together. What's going on?
I know.
The oral history of the Dukes Mayo Bowl podcast.
I feel like the only thing that's missing is we should all have a box of, as you said, cream-filled cookies and some mayonnaise.
I know the fact that we didn't, the first time, or one of the first times I saw Anish in person after the Mayo Bowl was at the men's lacrosse Final Four in Hartford, Connecticut, and there ended up being a massive rain delay, and so we were sitting in the back there chopping it up out in front of the broadcast booth, and all of a sudden we just looked over, and on the desk, or with all the snacks up there in the press box, mayonnaise packets and Oreos, and we just kind of got kumbaya together for old time's sake.
Classic.
Oh my God!
It wasn't Dukes, however. Unfortunately, it wasn't Dukes.
Yes, exactly. This is strictly a Dukes family when it comes to that standpoint.
Family. It has twang,
and it really does make a difference. I mean, I don't think some of the things we tried on air last year would have been the same if it was normal mayonnaise. The twang matters.
The twang always matters. The twang matters in every walk of life. So shout out to the Dukes folks for bringing the twang on that one. But guys, I want to kind of work chronologically through this because for, what people saw of that game versus what that was for us, kind of two different things. Because I always said that was kind of like the culmination of one of the most fun seasons I've had covering college football, doing anything. And for all of us, Anish, I had worked with you before, filling in on a crew years before with you and Roddy Jones. Taylor, you and I hadn't gotten to work together before that, but certainly knew of and knew about you. And so we got together, and week one, I remember being in Maryland with you guys, and we bonded over the fact that at that point, Anish was a newly minted Taylor Swift fan, and it feels like the rest was history after that.
That's all it took. That's all it took.
Yeah, and then, we had our moment. You talk about the full payoff. Do you remember the last regular season game where she had come out with Taylor's version, right?
Oh, my God,
and then
yes.
We had the list of songs, and you had your college football playoff rankings, and, it was a very much a full circle season. But, yeah, for me, far and away the most enjoyable college football season I've had working. I thought it wasn't just, the three of us kind of became our own little family. We had a fourth, who doesn't like to be tagged.
Yeah.
Naveed Kajavi is his name. We called him No Tag Naveed. Shady little character with an interesting backstory that nobody knows. But it was kind of just the four of us on the road throughout the season. And, I just felt like we had fun. And it was fun. And every week the goal was to tell the story about the teams, to tell the important stories about the players, and then just to have fun. You got to remember that was 2021, still kind of in a pandemic, right? I just felt that was really important for sports in general, where let's just scale back. It doesn't have to be so serious, so nuanced all the time. We can have fun with it. And the one thing I was proud of the most is I thought a lot of the stuff that went on off the air and behind the scenes, we were able to bring a lot of that to the viewers through the course of the season.
That's what I was going to say, Anish. I think it was really rewarding when other people started to recognize how much fun we had. I constantly last year had people, gosh, your crew looks like so much fun. You guys have so much fun. Even people in this studio being like, I love doing your games because you guys have so much fun. And to me, that was super rewarding because I knew how much fun we had, which, by the way, it's a true travesty we didn't do a podcast throughout the season to tell some of the stories because that would have been really entertaining. But it was just so much fun every single week. We were our own family, group dinners. The Friday before, truly, we could write a book about some of the conversations we had at those dinners. And I just look back and I'm thankful because that was my first season on a package. And so you guys set the bar extremely high as to, what type of family you can create within the dynamic of a crew.
Yeah. And one of my low-key favorite moments, that would present itself every few weeks. Anytime there was a gain of 1 yard on first down, I'd look over to Mike and I just go, and that'll bring up 2nd and 9. And Golick would sit there trying not to giggle.
For anyone that's not familiar, in front of us in the booth, there's 2 buttons. There's the cough button and the talk back button. One so we can talk to the producers in the truck and communicate, and the other one so we can cough and it not goes out on air. And the amount of times I'm leaning on the cough button as Anish just stares daggers into me with 2nd down and 9, or just does it like a throwaway. He'd no-look past it sometimes, where he'd just call it like it was run-of-the-mill in the play. And I'm hammering the cough button just to make sure that I'm not crying on air. It was the game within the game. So
it was a game within the game. It was, and a lot of times I would throw it out at you, like, that's a pickup of 1 yard, and that brings up Mike's favorite down, 2nd and 9, and then I'd watch him, and he's losing it, and that was, again, there were some inside jokes, and there was a lot of that camaraderie. We had a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun, and I remember when we got the Mayo Bowl assignment, given what that bowl does, and give the bowl folks a lot of credit. They have built this thing up to be an event. I think it captures the spirit of bowl season. Hey, let's not take ourselves too seriously. There's a million of these events. Let's be unique. Let's be different. And when we saw that we're getting a chance to do this, especially with how it had been built up and with what the end game that was promised, which was a coach getting a 4-gallon bucket of mayonnaise dumped on his head, we said, man, this is a chance not just to lean into it, but literally plunge into it.
It was, it had built up. So we had seen in bowl season for years that it evolved from the Cheez-It Bowl folks dumping Cheez-Its onto coaches. The famous Idaho Potato Bowl did it with French fries, I believe. And so we had a couple of those. And you're right, it all kind of built up to this moment. And a lot of people had questions about it. And walking into that, I will say the person I was most nervous in the lead up thinking about it was Taylor, because she was going to be the only one of us down in the action and down in the splash zone anywhere near all the mayonnaise in this. T-Mac, you had to be sweating bullets.
Well, it was funny because I just didn't know how it was all going to play out. Going into the stadium that day, I'm like, okay, is this a situation where I'm right on the field post game with him and he's going to, they're going to dump it right over his head right there. I didn't know. It ended up not being that way. They kind of took the coach off to the side and had this sort of set up to get the Mayo dowsing. So I do remember Golick, same thing. And you were the one who brought it up. Like, are you nervous? And I was more nervous, like, okay, what should I wear? Because if I wear something that's potentially near mayonnaise, probably going to get destroyed forever. So, I had to choose an outfit that I didn't care that much about. It ended up raining, so I was in a raincoat, which probably worked in my favor because when Beamer did get doused with the Mayo, there was some remnants that got on my rain jacket. But luckily, I probably should never have wiped it off and just kept it on there for good measure and good memories.
Send it to the College Football Hall of Fame where it belongs in a display case.
Yeah, you can't tell the story of the sport without the history of that game. And it was they recognized they had a crew that was going to lean into it, that had, I think we earned our place in that game based on a season long of committing to the bit. And so we finally got to that point where it was the week leading up to it. And Anish, you were the one when we had the production meeting early in the week that brought this up. Wasn't it like a BuzzFeed article that had strange pairings of mayonnaise and food that you had dropped in our lap?
It was some article which said, all right, these are strange things that you can, dip and dunk in mayo. And so we started talking about it as a crew because you got to remember something happened in the lead up to that game. So originally, the whole build up to the game was going to be the end game. And so originally, to Taylor's point, we thought that you were going to be interviewing the coach post-game on the field, and then the dump would happen on the field. And then they switched that up on us, 4 or 5 days out, where the Carolina Panthers basically stepped in and said, hey, we've had a lot of injuries this year. We're not getting Mayo into this turf. Maybe it messes with the viscosity of it. I don't know. And you're going to have to do this in the tunnel. We're not going to do it on the field. And what that meant is logistically, it wouldn't air on TV, on linear television. So, Taylor, you do the post-game ceremony for these bowl games as the field reporter, and now all of a sudden we've got to adapt because what we thought was going to be the culmination of the broadcast on live TV will now end up on the app. And our challenge now became, all right, well, if people aren't going to see that, we have to keep them around for that. And how do we build toward that?
Yeah, that was the entire goal of this thing. It was elaborate storytelling because also like in the middle of that, we ended up like, we'll get to the game that went haywire in so many ways that we weren't prepared for. Like we got the gift of a great game, which helped out in that process too. And so we got ready. We saw that article. We're like, all right, why don't we eat some stuff on air as kind of a through line to keep people going in this sort of like breadcrumbs leading to the ultimate mayonnaise prize at the end. And we had picked out a couple of food items that we thought might work, some things that might go well. We had a donut mixed in there. We had the peanut butter and jelly sandwich in there, the Uncrustables that Anish and Taylor watched me the entire season just completely housed before games when we would go for snacks by the truck.
The caramel things that Anish hated. Do you remember those?
What are those? My God, the Werther's candies.
Yes. Anish hates them. And I still find them in my purse because last year I would grab boxes of them and throw them in my purse. And I'm still like, oh, that's
Grandma Taylor walking up asking anyone if they want any Werther's candies on the trips now.
Werther's candies, and then you went for the Uncrustables. I mean, you would devour this stuff. That was the untold part of this, and I'm glad you're doing this oral history because all season long, like Mike, you didn't grow up poor, but like you ate like Oliver Twist, and I mean that in a heartwarming way. We would go to places, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe the guy grew up in Connecticut. We know who his dad was. Refined palate? No, we're in Mississippi for back-to-back weeks, and Taylor, he's going around looking for chicken on a stick, but not just chicken on a stick, gas station chicken on a stick.
Okay, so before we started recording this, before Anish was on, we were talking about the different hotels we stayed in, and we brought up the one in Starkville, Mississippi, and he said the best part of that hotel was the fast food restaurant that was in the parking lot. I'm like, only he remembers the fast food restaurants in the parking lots.
They had a cookout right there. It was steps away from us in Starkville. What better way to start your day? No, it is true. I said to Taylor, I think in Mississippi alone last year, I gained 15 pounds. I had 4 meals at the gas station in Oxford.
What about Tallahassee? Do you want to tell people about the little sojourn, little odyssey you took us on at 10 o'clock at night?
So Anish and Taylor learned pretty quickly that I think I said this on the broadcast for the for when we were in the New Orleans Bowl last year. I'm like a bloodhound for carbs and sweets. And so every place that we would land, I would try and find some cool ice cream spot or something that people around there would recommend. And Tallahassee, we didn't get a lot of recommendations. And so I just looked one up on my phone and I said, oh, this place looks kind of cool. Looks like it could be kind of trendy. Let's go and check this out. And so we had gone to dinner. And then I said, all right, I found it on here. I got the directions to it. Let's go. And I lead us on this journey through every dark, dimly lit back road in Tallahassee. And I got to give T-Mac credit because she was out in front of this. No fear, walking through this completely unknown terrain. Didn't give a damn. As Anish and Naveed were both in the back like, we're going to get jumped. We're for sure going to get jumped walking to go get ice cream.
I think I was just so excited about the ice cream.
Where were you taking us?
That is true, because at that point, Tallahassee was early enough in the season where, like, we knew each other, but it was still like, all right, like, what is Mike on down here? Does he know some people in Tallahassee? Is some shit about to go down?
Well, that was when I started to think that Anish had a backstory, because I'm like, if Anish is this scared about a back road in Tallahassee, what's happened to him on back roads in the past?
Backstories on back roads. The Anish Shroff story. Oh my God. Yeah, that was probably I feel like for the rest of the season, for the most part, I kept us on the straight and narrow because we also had to walk like 2 miles to get there. So I was exhausted by the end.
And then we waited like 2
the ice cream
hours.
was good, though. The ice cream was good.
We did have to wait a long time. That's right. Yeah, I felt bad about that one. I did feel bad about that one.
It was good.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
But all of that is a culmination of, yes, that was just kind of how we got down. For the New Orleans Bowl, it was a cinnamon roll the size of our head in between yoga and a 5K inside the stadium. We contained multitudes. Again, not to toot our own horn, but toot toot.
And Fargo, that donut shop that had a donut about the size of your head too. Maybe I just will drive up to Fargo. I'm in Brookings, South Dakota right now. I think it's maybe another hour and a half, 2 hours. Might go up just for the donut.
So the theme here is food was a big part of the theme of our season leading up to that. We get the Mayo Bowl. We're on the call, and we got to figure out now 2 things. One, we have to build to this crescendo, and we have to keep viewers with us long enough so at the end of the game we can say, hey, flip onto the app to watch the winning coach get dunked with Mayo. And then we also have to figure out a way to sort of build toward it with some, I guess you can call it a gimmick. And so we throw out the idea, hey, what if we're dipping Mayo in different foods? And that's where Mike chimes in, and you go with I want to pick the foods.
I had been curating our bad eating all year long, so it only felt right. So, yeah, we landed on Oreos, which earlier in the season we had gotten a little bit of pushback. We went to 10. So this also builds into it. So we make the food choice there.
Cream-filled cookies. Why did you say cream-filled cookies?
I was going to say, for anyone that hasn't seen the clip, when we're introing that first one, because we led with Oreos, then we went Uncrustable, then we did a glazed donut at the end of that one. And we led with the Oreos, and I in the clip say, all right, we're going to go with the cream-filled cookie first, because rewind back to our game at Tennessee. We had South Carolina at Tennessee in Knoxville, and Alontae Taylor was a defensive back for Tennessee who, in this age of NIL, had an awesome deal with what do you guys remember the name of the cookie place there? We could say it now because we're not on the broadcast.
Moonshine Mountain Cookies.
Yeah, Moonshine Mountain Cookies.
So we had Moonshine Mountain Cookies had sponsored Alontae Taylor, and anytime he got an interception that season, Tennessee fans could go and get 2 free cookies. And in the middle of this game, Alontae intercepts a 2-point conversion, and Anish, ever up on the rules, reminds all of us that on a 2-point conversion, it doesn't technically go down in the books as an interception in the body of the game. And we get to commercial, and we are all like furiously DMing this cookie place, trying to find out if this counts and if we could tell Tennessee fans they're getting free cookies. And we came back on air and said the name of the cookie place. Or Taylor, had you said the name of the cookie place already doing the report down in the sideline? Because that was one of your stories.
Well, just to add a little bit to that story, we didn't really know how everything worked with NIL. Everybody was figuring it out. So the day before we knew about this kid's NIL deal. So I was like, well, naturally, we have to go check out this cookie place, and we have to have cookies ready in case he does get an interception. So I had gone to the cookie place, gotten these bomb cookies, and was ready on air for them. And so I think I was the one who mentioned it off the top, which I actually think I said the name wrong on air. So whoops, sorry, we'll make up for it now. I had said the name wrong, but still said the name. And then you guys probably said it again and didn't go over well.
Yeah, but you know what? When you said, hey, we're furiously DMing people, that was reporting, Mike. We did some reporting, and Moonshine Mountain Cookies got back to us and said they're going to honor the spirit of the NIL. It'll count. And everybody got free cookies, so we were able to bring that information out. But yes, we got a few slaps on the wrist for mentioning the specific name. But again, lesson learned. So instead of Oreo, it was cream-filled cookies. Instead of Uncrustables, it was peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
And we just went strict glazed donut. So yeah, we evolved as the season went along there. That was the height of our journalism at that point, certainly going and doing the reporting work like Anish mentioned. But we got us to that point. And so it all built up there. And I think pregame, before we got to the actual game, the last sort of piece of the puzzle also was our producer for the year is John Kettering, who you guys still worked with in this past season as well. Brock Osweiler was in the booth with you guys. And Ket, unfortunately, that game, so we had been non-industry people. We were a Remy Pro crew, which meant that we were all out there on site, but all of our production staff was back in Charlotte doing this and producing the game remote. And so our producer hadn't been out with us on the road all season long. And we were really excited because the bowl game was played in Charlotte. Anish and his family are in Charlotte. Ket and his family, is down there. And so we're like, all right, this will be great. We'll all get to be here, kumbaya, at the end of the season. Ket unfortunately got COVID before that game. He was out for that game, and so wasn't able to be there with us. And Paul Irvin stepped in, who we all know is another great producer down in Charlotte there at ESPN. And Paul hadn't been around us all year. He knew us, but he didn't know us like that. So when we threw out this idea, Paul was, kind of quick. He was basically coming in and being a good teammate, saying, listen, I haven't been on your guys' crew this year. You guys know how you handle business. I'll be deferential to you guys, and we'll go and put on a good broadcast. And so it kind of gave us a little free rein to sort of push this through in a way that didn't get as much pushback the way it might have been for Ket, who knew us all year long and was used to our shenanigans.
Yeah, and Ket Taylor was sort of our conscience in a sense that, we would sort of pitch crazy, wacky ideas, and we would, I don't want to say fun police is the wrong word, but he was the guy who would say, hey, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Let's peel this back. We don't want to step over that line, which we probably would have done had he not stepped in multiple times. Yep. But given the nature of this game, I think when we found out, all right, we've got a producer who's just kind of nosediving in here last minute, who basically said, yeah, I'll do whatever you want to do. We very quickly, Taylor, I think, decided we're going to disregard the line altogether, and we're just going to go full sickos.
And we have to give Paul a lot of credit here because Paul is awesome, and he totally, once we sort of went full sickos, he fully embraced it with us. And he was all in. I mean, because if you remember the glazed donut at the end of the game, I think it was in the fourth quarter when the game was still pretty tight. And so a lot of producers would have been like, enough, focusing on the game. And he was like, no, we got to find a way to get this in, last one of the day. And so I give him a lot of credit for finding that window for us to have the final ounce of fun there prior to Shane Beamer getting doused with Mayo, because again, it was all a culmination of that Mayo dump at the end of the show. So I got to give Paul a lot of credit for the way he stepped in and sort of helped us, egg on our shenanigans.
Yeah, that's a tough spot for a producer, for folks not in the industry. That's a tough spot. You got 2-3 days and you got to figure it out. And, we kind of said, hey, we'll take as much off the plate, quite literally, as possible. And, he trusted us, and it turned into a moment. It turned into something. I remember even when we came on the air. Do you remember what I said on the air? I think when we came on the air, I had said something along the lines of, this is the most anticipated bowl game outside of the college football playoff. And there was the guy from CBS, what's his name, Dennis Dodd, who took serious issue with it, like hyperbole, get off my lawn, these clowns. And so it was like we leaned into it. Obviously, it was hyperbole. Obviously, it was tongue. But we just said we're going to lean into this thing. It was 2 6-6 teams. It's Mayo dumped on a coach at the end of the game. And I remember once that thing started, that was probably, I don't know if you guys feel the same way. Like that was as much fun as I've had on the air in my broadcasting career.
1,000%.
Oh,
do you remember the open, my quote unquote open hit was interviewing both coaches together down there. And how often does that happen that you can get both coaches together right before kickoff? Like the answer to that is that never happens. And so that was something cool for me, is to get this moment that usually would never happen. And not only, Mac Brown and Shane Beamer have a special relationship, so we leaned into that. But then of course at the end, it was like, all right, one of you is getting doused with Mayo. And of course that meant that their team got a win. So both of them were signing up for it. So I thought that for me was super cool, just being able to do, again, something different that usually I would never get to do.
How cool was that too, though? You talk about, needing all the elements. The fact that both coaches were so willing to lean into this as well and embraced the spirit of what that bowl game was about.
I think that's the kind of the message in all of this, right? Is it took a lot of people willing to go all in and willing to embrace something that was a little bit different, because the Dennis Dodds of the world, there were a bunch of people that came out after the fact and said, we tried to make it about us or tried to take away from the game or any number of things that were a criticism of something that looked and sounded a little different. And I know knowing us and knowing the way this crew approached it, like, there was a ton of sincerity played to what went on the field in that game. I mean, we had Dakarian Joyner coming in and playing quarterback in a way that South Carolina had hidden that entire week. We mentioned it was a 2 6-6 teams, but it was, a border war game between North Carolina and South Carolina. There was all that baked in. We're in Charlotte, and we had a really good game in the midst of all this. It's always like when you get the criticism of athletes where they're out doing something else, and you get the people that are like, why aren't you in your playbook, or why aren't you doing something like that? Every waking minute wasn't spent doing all this stuff, but we pick and chose spots where we leaned into, like you said, what was the overarching theme hanging over the heads, quite literally, for the coaches and for everyone else in this game and in bowl season, is we know not all of these games are for the national championship. We know not all of these games to the average fan of sports who's just coming in is going to be the most appealing thing in the world. But to college football fans, tried and true, who love how weird and wacky this sport, the fact that it's a little bit dressed down from its NFL counterpart, like, there was plenty in the game for everyone and whatever your tastes were, at least I thought.
Yeah, and I think the biggest point that I would just hone in on is it is college football, yes, and there's an element of college football that is to be taken seriously. But at the end of the day, it is entertainment. All of this is entertainment. And so the fact that people don't want us to lean into the entertainment aspect of it is just silly in my book, because, again, this was teeing itself up to be great entertainment. And I was super proud of the way we leaned into that. And I thought it was an amazing show.
I just go back to, what was the story of the game? What was the thing that drove people to watch that game? What was the singular driving force? It was mayonnaise. You had Sam Howell playing his last game basically in his hometown, and you had North and South Carolina. But even the coaches, embraced that. That's what they were asked about in the press conference. And we covered the other stuff, Sam Howell playing his last game and why he was playing when he could have opted out very easily. I thought documented the game, but I thought it's on us. ESPN's motto is always serve the viewer. Mm-hmm. And people are tuning into that game because of what's going to happen in the end. And I guess we should probably go to that first moment, right?
Yeah, the first moment was really more about the first look. Like, think of a father seeing his daughter on her wedding day for the first time. That was me looking into Anish's eyes the moment the Oreo covered in mayonnaise met his lips. Because obviously, as we've documented on this, I'm a shit pig. I'm going to put whatever's on the plate into my gullet. That's just how I operate. And so with Anish, we were up there in the booth, and he was like, yeah, no, bleep it. I'm gonna do it with you. I'm gonna put my hand in the pile. Same for Taylor. I know, because of the camera setup, Taylor, we didn't have you with us for the Oreo. You were with us for the next two, right? Yeah,
well, what happened was I didn't have the ingredients. So I didn't have the mayonnaise and the Oreo because I was on the other side of the field. And it was, those, again, for those who don't know how a broadcast works, like, we're constantly adjusting to the game. And so what happened, there was a situation in the game that lended itself to have time to be able to do something like that. And that decision is made like this. And so I couldn't get to the other side of the field to therefore get my ingredients and then go back to the camera. So yes, that's what happened. But really quick, I just want to, before you tell the rest of this story, I just want to lean into what you were saying about consuming absolutely anything. I remember, I think it was 1 or 2 weeks before that, might have been when we were in New Orleans. I was eating something, and I can't even remember what I was eating, but it fell on the ground. And I was like, dang it, like, that was really good. And he looks at me, he goes, oh, you know how much of a sicko I am? I would have just picked that thing up and ate it. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure it was in New Orleans. I was like, I don't know. I'm kind of like that too. Like, I'm not, there would be situations where I would have picked it up, but I was like, I don't know, these floors in New Orleans, not for me. So anyways, that just reiterates the point that you'll eat anything. And in this situation, Anish was happy to join in on the shenanigans.
He was.
Yeah, and the story with the Oreo was the cream-filled cookie. Excuse me. The story with the cream-filled cookie. So that was the first one, and we didn't really have an idea outside of Golic of what we'd be eating. Now the Oreos were a little giveaway because you were cradling a pack of Oreos like a football pregame on the field, and I saw that. And I said, "What's all that about?" And you kind of looked at me and said, "Oh, you just wait." And so I kind of figured, okay, there's going to be, something here that I might end up regretting. But when we originally did the Oreo, people saw my reaction. And I'll let Mike take it because you saw it. I know I turned into a meme. Taylor texts our group chat after the game like, hey, new profile pic. Here's your new you text my phone now, like, we got a new picture for you. But you saw my reaction because it was really a two-part taste test there.
It was the immediate shock of the situation where I obviously, how's the cookie? I'm chewing through it. I give the instant review on air with my mouth full because I'm my father's son. And I'm watching Anish process all of these complex emotions with this Oreo covered in mayonnaise in his mouth. And at first I looked at him and I said on air, oh, I'm going to have to call the rest of this drive by myself because I thought he was going to get sick. And then he works through it. He gets back with us. And as soon as we hit break, he looks at me and he goes, you know what? Not bad. Like, it's got that twang.
So I've never asked you this. Had you tried it before?
No, hand to God, I had never dunked anything in mayonnaise like that before in my life, and specifically not an Oreo or any of the things that we did that day. So I flew in blind with you.
This is the photo of Anish, by the way.
That was the moment where he realized, oh, this isn't so bad.
I think that might have been the PB&J.
That might have been.
This is Anish's contact picture in my phone, so anytime he calls me, that is what pops up.
And like the amazing part with that, like it popping up on our phones is ESPN. So again, we're doing a game. We don't have any control of what's going out there. And during the game, ESPN's social media department, and shout out to Reba and all those girls that do people that do a fantastic job managing the social accounts and helping us all get those things. They just threw that out there during the game, and all of a sudden our phones are blowing up because it's starting the process of going viral online during the game while we're doing this.
And then
Wasn't there an ESPN alert?
Yes.
And
it pushed out.
A couple things. I remember, again, so when I'm down on this sideline, I can't see what's happening up in the booth unless I'm near a monitor. And at that particular moment, I was not near a monitor. So I could only hear what was happening with you guys when Anish almost vomited on air. And I hear our producer, Paul Irvin, and I don't know if he was in your guys' ear, he is dying laughing. Like, he's in my talkback, like, oh my gosh, and is like crying laughing. And so I'm laughing down on the sideline, having no idea what's going on. And in my head, I'm like, is he actually about to puke? Like, I don't know. So
for a split second, I was not sure. And that was the beauty of it, is that was all, like, we couldn't prepare. Like the live game going on in front of us, the game within the game was not being sure what any of our reactions to this are going to be. But then it just went nuclear from there. And I know we were all excited about how we were going to lean into this game and having fun with it because we all love college football. We all love bowl season and all that stuff. I don't think any of us could have predicted what happened when it actually hit like that. That was the one thing that blew me away.
Could not have predicted, what was it, Australia? An Australian newspaper that wrote about what sickos we were.
They said that we were the reason why America was without hope or like beyond saving.
We did that.
We did do that. Dionne Warwick said that we should be put on paid leave, that we should be off air for what we had. Miss Dionne, one of the queens of Twitter and of R&B, thought what we did was that morally reprehensible. We registered with an audience that, again, to Anish's point, serving the viewer and the casual fan that was going to come into that, we gave them something they have never seen before or probably won't since.
No, I remember at halftime, I just checked my phone and it was just blowing up. I'm getting texts from all sorts of people. What have you done? Dude, are you serious? you didn't really dunk an Oreo in mayo. I'm getting alerts. I mean, ESPN sending those alerts out. It created, for better or for worse, one of the more interesting and memorable moments of bowl season. And then, we decided, hey, let's do part 2 and part 3.
Yeah. Hey, we kept it going. So we kept that through line going, and they all, again, Anish, Taylor, correct me if I'm wrong, they all tasted pretty fine with that on it. Like the PB&J, it was all smooth and creamy. The donut, it's very similar to stuff you'd have on it anyway. I had no beef. Yeah, I didn't have the Oreo, obviously, so maybe I dodged a bullet there, but the other two were great.
You like the donut?
Yeah, I remember not. I mean, I don't know if I would use the word like, but I didn't
Right. Yeah, like might be a strong word, but it was, if someone made me do it again under threat of force, I would have no problem diving back in.
Same. And it's hilarious how many people since then bring that up. I mean, I was at the MLB winter meetings this past week, and one of the guys who I hadn't seen in forever comes up to me and goes, yeah, I watch you on college football. I saw you eat the mayonnaise.
I can say, are you guys now officially like wearing the scarlet letter of mayonnaise for the rest of our days?
So how about this? So, Taylor's got a wedding to go to, so she's not doing the Mayo Bowl this year. I'm doing it again this year. And in the ESPN press release that went out, they described me as mayonnaise cookie connoisseur.
Wow.
Not the voice of the Carolina Panthers, which also plays at Bank of America.
Yes, exactly. No, honestly, accurate description. I see no lies there. And so leading up to that, we eat the rest of those, and then we get to the post game. We see Shane Beamer almost get knocked out by the bucket. That was the other part of this. So, Taylor, you're down on the field. Like Anish said, this is going to happen on the app after the game. We're telling people to stick around. College football fans are in a frenzy. The True Sickos Committee, people out there are all in on this. And we get to that moment, and they had done tests to try and get the viscosity right. Miller and the folks at the Charlotte Sports Foundation, who did a great job putting this all together, are doing all that, but it's a heavy bucket that they're getting ready to dump on him. And so as Shane is getting doused, he also took a bit of a rock in the back of the head. We were just glad he stayed upright.
Yeah, I think they had to elect new Mayo dumpers this year, and I don't know if that's exactly why, but I remember the night before the Mayo Bowl, we had gone out with Miller, or at least Golick and I, to some barbecue spot in Charlotte, and we're eating barbecue, and Miller is describing how they're going to dump the mayo and how they've been testing it. The girls had been sending him videos all day, like, does this work? Does this work? He's like, no, too fluid or whatever it was, try it again. And so they're practicing all week long. And I just don't think they anticipated how high they were going to have to lift it and then dump over his head. So, a little bit of we learned from that. But I think the whole dumping and getting a concussion while at it was part of what Shane Beamer will remember.
What I walked away from, that was the one base that I think the bowl forgot to cover, which was making sure you have people who can adequately lift and pour. Mm-hmm. And so they've corrected that and rectified that this year by, doing a whole vetting process and getting dumpers. I was a little surprised that they didn't bring you on, Mike, as an honorary dumper. I think you certainly deserve the honor. And I know you would have done a great job.
I know. Listen, I tried to show them, hey, guys, listen, I've gotten back in the gym this year. I'm as strong as I've been in a while. I'm capable of getting down there, lifting with my legs and not just bending at the waist to get that mayo up and overhead. But, listen, I'll continue to throw my services out there. They know we'll always be part of the Mayo family, even if some of us are a little farther away than usual this year. Maybe come back on as a dumper in years prior, because Anish, it does feel very right that you're the one of us that's going to represent us here still, because after that game, you weren't yet the voice of the Carolina Panthers, but you had made your home in Charlotte. And now, you have to walk around that Panthers facility and that stadium as somewhat of a king based on your status in that building after that moment.
Well, it's funny. I've told people the story. That came up during my interviews with the Panthers. And again, that game turning into a moment, indirectly helped me land that job. It's done in their stadium, in their backyard. And again, Taylor knows this. When you work for a team, it's a little different where you're trying to sell tickets and you're trying to appease sponsors. And all of a sudden you sort of had that perfect cocktail of all of that, right? Sponsor, game element, you tied it all in, you had fun with it, you created a moment. And I remember my wife ran the numbers. She works in public relations, and this doesn't even include social media, and it was something like 360 something million unique impressions, and I'm not sure exactly what that means, independent of social media, but there's a dollar value to that. I don't know how they calculate it, but that dollar value was north of $3 million. And so I remember being able to take that into my interview and saying, hey, this is something that we did by being total sickos. I didn't say that part. But how many times, I think after I started, which was a couple of months after that, in February or March, was I sending you pictures from the stadium where there was still Mayo lying around?
It's so true. I feel like they're never going to be able to fully get all the mayonnaise out of that stadium, especially now that I'm assuming it's just going to keep getting bigger and more brash as they approach this and douse the whole thing in mayonnaise. I don't know. Terrifying to think about what they might do this year. I don't know, Anish, Taylor, for both of you guys, what will be your ultimate takeaway from the Duke's Mayo experience? Taylor, as we mentioned, you're not going to be there with Anish this year. I'm not going to be there with Anish this year. So what was your ultimate takeaway from this entire ordeal involving mayonnaise and football?
Well, my first takeaway, I'm not going to be there because my little sister's getting married. And so I don't know who thought it was a good idea to schedule a wedding on New Year's so that I couldn't do the Duke's Mayo Bowl. So that's a little messed up. I'll have to take that up with her later. No, no, I think the biggest takeaway was not being afraid to lean into the entertainment aspect. You heard about some of the criticism, and there's certainly some of that you have to be careful about, but it's entertainment at the end of the day. And what people wanted to see was that Mayo dunk at the end of the game with whatever winning coach won the game, and to have fun with it and not be afraid to have fun and lean into all the shenanigans that could potentially come out of that. And I think we did a really good job out of it, and we showed our personalities, and we gave people an enjoyable broadcast from my vantage point. So those would probably be the top two things. Don't get married during bowl season. And don't be afraid to lean into the entertainment.
Incredible advice.
I'll say this. The thing that I kind of took away, really two things. One, it just felt like really a perfect send-off for our crew. That was the last time the three of us had done a game together. And, Mike and Taylor, we had so much fun on and off the air that season. And it was like this cauldron of just, everything we had sort of poured into the season. And it was a lot of us in there, and it was authentic. And that's what I liked about it. And then the other thing, a lesson for any young broadcaster potentially listening to this stuff, I think sometimes you got to trust your instincts, and it's better to beg for forgiveness on the back end, moonshine mountain cookies, right? Than ask for permission. And what I mean by that is, these are things where sometimes if you shoot the idea and you say, well, do you think we'll be allowed to do this? And you start asking questions, you sometimes give people an opportunity to say no. And I've kind of always felt like, hey, if it works, well, somebody else can always take credit for it. If it doesn't, you can throw us under the bus. That's the reality, right? You guys messed up. It didn't work. But the one thing I learned, I think, through the course of not just this season, but having done this, is you want to trust your instincts, and you grow your instincts and you hone your instincts. And our instincts were to kind of follow the mayonnaise, for that bowl game. And I'm glad we did. It's certainly the most memorable game that I've done. It's the game that I get asked about more than any other in the year that we've done this. Everybody wants to know why. Everybody wants to know how. Everybody wants to know, what kind of sickos we all are. And that's a loaded question to answer sometimes, but I've tried to be honest about it. So I think it's trust your instincts. And, you know, when you're a broadcaster, sometimes you want to step over that line, and it's okay to do so.
Yeah, I think what you said there, and both of you guys kind of hinted at it there, is sort of trust. Like, and I think it was trust with like all of us too. That was the part that was most fun to me. Is I think you earn those moments to go out there and give yourselves into the thing like that through the entire year. And we had spent so much of that year on and off the air. Taylor, you described all the time together, playing board games in the lobby of these hotels and tracking down ice cream places and doing all that. But then in the game, like, it was an equal partnership, I think, across the board. Like, Taylor, we've always talked about this sideline. You have comparatively fewer opportunities to impact the game, but that never impacted like the preparation you put into this. You always had such great stuff. You always related something that we could talk about back in the booth. Like, we trusted you every time we were going down to you that there was going to be an awesome value add in that moment. And Anish, we trusted you that you were always going to set the tempo and the framework for the game. What is the big story of this game? What is everyone thinking about when they look at this matchup? And so just because I trusted you guys so much in that we could all hand the baton off at some point and everyone was going to do something awesome with it, I think that's what for me made this moment possible and made the season fun in general. Was just there was that much trust personally and professionally, at least from my standpoint on the crew.
Yeah, no doubt. It was so much fun, and I think this job is awesome, getting to go to these college towns and call these games, and we've gotten to call some big games, but it's so much fun just being with you guys. And I think, not to be too much of a sap, but like, we know we had a good season when we all still have a group chat. Like, we still talk almost every day in that group chat. And we keep up with each other's lives. And I think that just, you know, is a clear indication of how much fun we had last year, because we're still friends outside of work.
I think for me, that component just for the season, without getting sappy as well, yeah, that was it. You know, you guys both became, you know, really close friends. We had a lot of jokes at each other's expense. We also had some, you know, really, you know, sound, real conversations that I don't think coworkers often have with each other. And that was, you know, that was endearing. And we got to, you know, see the full extent of everybody's personality. I think by season's end, there really weren't many secrets, you know, between us three. And it made for this very, I thought, relaxed atmosphere on the road. You know, going to work and going on the road every week was fun. We looked forward to it. Where are we going to eat? Where's Mike going to take us for dessert? You know, how many times can I get Mike to crack up during a game? You know, how many times is he going to try to get me to laugh during a game? You know, we would have all these running inside jokes. And for folks who don't know, the biggest laugh of anybody on our crew is Taylor. Taylor will laugh at anything. If you say you can have the worst joke possible, she'll make you think you are a comedian, because she will belly laugh at literally anything and everything, and that became a running gag.
Wait, can we tell? Okay, so I have a quick story just to go along with that. You know, Anish and I, we have a lot of great conversation, and he'll give me life advice. And one time we were talking, and you know, sometimes I just have a tendency to laugh, especially when I'm nervous. And so we were talking about a situation, and he was like, well, you know, how do I say this? The laugh. I just started dying laughing. I was like, I know. I do. I laugh. It's so bad. Yes, if you're feeling down about yourself, that you're not funny enough, hang out with me and I'll make you feel like you're a comedian.
It is so true. I said from the moment I left sports, the hardest thing was finding the feel in the locker room of people that you could like trust and be your fullest self with every day. And we had that with this crew, and it was awesome. And it's what made this whole season and the lead up to that game and execution so much damn fun. As this podcast, which we talked about, we said last year we should have done a podcast every week. We managed to do it here. Guys, thank you for helping me relive this memorable experience for us. I love you both. You're awesome teammates, and I'm sure I'll be talking to you in the group chat all during this game as me and Taylor egg on Anish while she's at a wedding and I'm just at home getting drunk watching mayonnaise.
Yeah, I'm telling you, we're cooking up a few things. So we're going to try to cook up a few things this year. Hopefully we can execute them. Hopefully we can at least match what we did last year. But yeah, we've got some ideas this year. One of the things that we need to do this year is at some point, Taylor, I'm sure Andrea Carter, who's our sideline reporter, is going to be all over this, but right, we're reporting on this event. I mean, at some point in the second half, don't we need to hear from the dumpers? Don't we need to hear what's going through their head?
That's actually a really good point. That's a great point. Yeah. Yeah, that's important because really that was the downfall last year and the glitch. So we have to make sure those guys are in the right mindset to make sure no more concussions happen.
Challenge to Andrea Carter, who I know is up for this. I've seen the work that she's done with Alyssa Lang on the SEC Network. I know she's about that life. Taylor, you mentioned it. They were testing out the viscosity last year. I think Andrea needs to go and personally hand test out the viscosity of the mayonnaise on air to make sure that it's going to be light enough to be dumped on a coach. I feel like that'd be responsible journalism.
Yeah, and I also feel like we need to see them lift the mayonnaise before too. So there's a couple questions, definitely the viscosity, but also, do they have the muscles to be able to lift that thing above their head and then dump it? Because that was really the issue last year, is they couldn't lift the mayonnaise high enough and then dump it.
I'm picturing like a Rocky-style mayonnaise training montage.
I mean, I would almost think you would need a Drago and a Rocky. That thing was heavy, from what I understood. And from what I recall, last year they had a couple of practice runs with the dump. Somebody actually had mentioned to me about a week or so ago and said, hey, they practice dumping the mayonnaise. Would you be willing to sit down for it? And I thought about it, and I said, in the spirit of the bowl game, I would absolutely volunteer as tribute.
Wow.
Let's go.
Wow.
This is what we want right here.
That is commitment. All right. Well, I am waiting on bated breath now for this video to hit the group chat if and when it goes down. Wow. All right. See, if nothing else, let that be the sell that you need to make sure that you are asses in seats for the Duke's Mayo Bowl Part 2 with Anish Shroff at the helm, both hands on the wheel, but certainly Mayo riding shotgun in the passenger seat.
Well, I was going to say, and the one other element that I was hoping to have last year, we didn't have. I'm hoping we got to reach out to him. So if you remember the beginning of the last college football season, they had the Duke's Mayo kickoff.
Yes.
At Bank of America Stadium. I believe it was Clemson in Georgia, right? Game day was there. And do you remember the dude who was just squeezing it all over himself and bathing himself and lathering himself up? Well, we had reached out to him before the Mayo game last December to see if he would be there. And he was on some trip, I think, in South America. Well, if he's there, I mean, just, again, you got to lean into this thing, right?
Yes.
He's overdue for updating his skincare routine once again to include mayonnaise.
I have such FOMO. This is not fair. I literally am oozing of FOMO right now.
Oozing of FOMO and mayonnaise.
And instead of soap, I'm just going to mayonnaise the entire tub.
Oh, dear God. That's how you get into the true deep, dark feelings of bowl season for all of our fellow sickos. Man. It is. It's good for the skin. I always tell people that.
It's good for the skin.
Guys, this was amazing. Thank you both so much for giving me an hour of your time to talk mayonnaise and football. I love you both. Best of luck with the rest of bowl season. Everyone, make sure you check out Anish and Taylor. What quickly for you guys, Anish, you're on the Duke's Mayo Bowl. What other bowl game are you calling this season? And Taylor, I know you're on a couple as well, right?
Yeah, I'm on the Cotton Bowl radio, the Liberty Bowl, and the New Mexico Bowl.
Boom.
Yeah, and I'll be on the Mayo Bowl, the Boca Raton Bowl, and then the Celebration Bowl on radio.
Awesome. So make sure you guys check out Taylor and Anish at both of those spots. Make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review this podcast wherever you get them. Thanks so much. Everyone keep having a happy holiday and enjoy bowl season. We'll talk to you soon. Boom. Money in the bank.